Trey Yingst has been live along. The Israeli-Gaza border all morning was in a car for a while. Now is back. Hey Trey, we're here in a lot of explosions behind you, and we're seeing a lot of aerial shots of explosions in Gaza. Yeah, absolutely. The explosions behind me are from outgoing artillery units that are striking the eastern side of the Gaza Strip. Still, Gaza is getting hit from the air, from the ground, and the sea. The Israeli Navy shelling the beaches. This is a full-on sea, and you heard from the spokesman from the Israeli military earlier in the show talking about what got us here, this massacre of civilians, and there's a real expectation that the ground war that is about to take place will last for a very, very long time. I want to show you what the artillery units look like behind me. They've been firing off all day, hitting those positions inside Gaza. There's an effort to clear a path for the Israeli military before they actually enter the strip. It's going to be an incredibly difficult operation with guerrilla warfare tactics. Against them, Hamas and Islamic Jihad had been able to smuggle weapons into Gaza through tunnels on the Egyptian border. For years since the mid-2000s, when Hamas ultimately took over Gaza in 2006, they were able to build this network of tunnels where they're, actually, they say, holding the hostages, the Americans. The Israelis, anyone that they took from southern Israel back into Gaza hands, claims they're taking them into the tunnels. This is especially problematic for the Israelis because they're launching airstrikes against the infrastructure that holds the weapons from these Iranian-backed groups. So when we talk about what this situation is going to look like, it is not going to be one of the traditional events that you see here in this region. When it comes to Israel and Gaza, many times, we've covered 3- and 4-day operations. Back in 2021, there was an 11-day war between Israel and Gaza, and even a 51-day war back in 2014. There's understanding. This is different. This is a matter of life and death for Israel, and this is something that will not be over in a short period of time. That's what we're told from the military and based on what we see on the ground. Not just from these artillery units, but from the soldiers, and for the many people that we've spoken with, this is the sense that we get on the ground. Yeah, Lawrence Trey, I know you're plugged in and you have sources with inside of the military. I know the ground troops are waiting to go, and from that order from the Prime Minister. What is the calculation? What is the weight right now for those ground troops? The Israelis have strategic patience on their hands, and I'm going to have my cameraman pan over to this middle unit. Right here, and you're probably going to see some more artillery come off just over those treetops there. The idea for Israel right now is to wait and to be strategic. They don't have to rush into Gaza. They can take their time moving as many forces here, because this is not a simple operation. It does not mean that there is not an urgency in the Israeli military because of the hostages that were taken, but there is an understanding based on their intelligence and what we know about the tunnel network inside Gaza that it's not going to be something simple. They cannot just go in and rescue these people. They're going to need to take territory. And they have to do that in an efficient way and in a way that doesn't get the first aisle units killed. And so they're going to be up against roadside bombs, rooks, small arms fire, a civilian population that hates them in many cases, and a militant organization that runs the strip, Hamas, with smaller factions like Islamic Jihad. All of these organizations that build rockets, they can build weapons, and we have seen with our cameras that they can build bombs. And so that's what Israel needs the time to prepare for. Shirley and Trey, I was just reading. Thousands of Israelis have volunteered to dig graves, which speaks volumes about what is happening there. But many funerals near the border with Gaza, where you can't be held because of the military action that we are seeing behind you and we are hearing of. You mentioned in the last hour that you have been in contact with Hamas. What do they say? How's it going for them right now overhead? You can hear an Israeli fighter jet going back and forth. We're right here along the border, and they're still striking targets inside Gaza. I did speak with a Hamas official, and I spoke with him again today. And this is someone that I have known for a very long time, a source of mine from my reporting inside Gaza, who generally answers questions that I ask, he's been avoiding questions about the civilian massacre that took place here on Saturday morning. Saying things like the land will not be taken from the Palestinians, and also saying things like the situation is very difficult for them inside. So it's a lot of propaganda from Hamas. It's not a lot of solid information about what's truly happening inside. Although we do know, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, more than 1,000 people are dead inside Gaza. I do want to note just one other thing about, sorry to interrupt you, but there, apparently our producers are telling us there are sirens going off in C. Is it Central Israel? They said central part of Israel. Let me look at the name for you. We're going to go to our app, because when you're in Israel, everyone has an app for red alert sirens. And my producer is going to check here too, to see where the sirens are sounding. Now, yeah, so likely the Israelis are under fire from short and medium range rockets. This is sort of a constant issue here, because both Islamic Jihad and Hamas will fire rockets at different angles and at different barges in order to try and overwhelm Israel's missile defense system. The Iron Dome, likely what they're trying to do here. Some of that fire is going to be picked up by the Iron Dome if it determines that it's not a threat to a populated area. Sometimes the Israelis allow the rocket fire through, but this is not a perfect system, as we have seen. Sometimes these are slamming into buildings. We saw earlier this week as one in Ashdod, a city very close to here, slammed into the side of a building. So just gives you a sense of what Israel is facing, and when that happens, people get an alert on their phones, and they have to immediately go to shelters and wait there until they hear the explosions overhead and they get the all clear. Oh man. Okay, so I'm told by my producer right now, they're firing on Tel Aviv, and you thought it was short to medium range missiles, yeah. So if they're firing on Tel Aviv, we're looking at medium to long range missiles. Now, Tel Aviv does have good air defense systems. When this started, I was on the balcony of my apartment, watching, as the rockets were intercepted overhead, some of them slamming into the sea. But it is an escalation when the factions inside Gaza fire on Tel Aviv, and so we know this and we know that it could be their way to send a message as a response to the strikes in Gaza. It also could just be the fact that they are varying the length at which they fire, because they don't have enough rockets to constantly fire on Tel Aviv. Sometimes they'll fire on the communities here along the border, and other times they try to hit heavier populated areas. Tel Aviv is Israel's second largest city. It's a city with a beach on the Mediterranean. There are a lot of nightclubs and restaurants and bars, but today they're all closed. People are at home. They're doing everything they can to help the war effort, because there's an understanding that this is a very active conflict, and Israel needs all the help that it can get. When you look at the Hamas missile stocks, how I know 5,000 were shot off in 20 minutes on Saturday. What did they tell you? The Israelis think that they have. It's a great question, because there was intelligence that we received last year saying that Hamas had around 15,000 rockets that Israelis believed, and they thought Islamic Jihad. The second largest faction inside Gaza had around 6,000 or 7,000 rockets. So you can do the math. Eventually, they will run out of rockets. So they will run low on rockets. By that time, likely the fighting will be taking place inside Gaza, and you'll see less rocket fire toward major population centers. The attack that took place on Saturday is not the normal situation along the border. There are occasionally infiltration attempts. And so that's why, when people initially saw rocket alerts, they knew something was wrong. But they could have never imagined that this was going to be a massacre of 1,200 people. And so we do know they have thousands of rockets. They have small arms, but they don't have an unlimited supply of rockets. They can make rockets inside Gaza, but many of those manufacturing sites are going to get destroyed in the airstrikes that are taking place right now and the artillery fire from behind me. They are building these rockets not just underground, but also in apartment buildings, sometimes, and they're storing a lot of the rockets in civilian areas. Another challenge for the Israeli military as they try to work their way into Gaza during this operation whenever it does kick off.